Hello, everyone. This is Keith Stone with the Center for Hellenic Studies, and it's another edition of HeroesX Office Hours. Today we're talking about hours 3 and 4, and I'm here again with Greg and Sarah and Janet and Aylin, as usual. And I'll just start off quickly by reading the questions. I'll read them both at the same time, and then we can have an organic discussion. So the hour 3 discussion question is, in another world, divorced from the world of the Iliad, could you imagine a man like Achilles falling in love with a woman like Andromache? And for hour 4, if you have developed a liking for Achilles as you read more and more of the Iliad, what new thing would you still need to see if you wanted to like him even more? Alternatively, if you have already developed a dislike for him, would there be anything new about him that could possibly turn you around so that you would actually start to like him? I love these creative questions, alternative history kinds of questions.
And you know, all of this goes back to so many years ago when I was working mostly with one level of students, one level of participants, and we were college students at Harvard College. The majority just really hated Achilles, and after Iliad 6, they hated him even more. And I've lost count how many years ago I thought, well, let's try to introduce the poetry of Sappho, or as I like to say, the song making of Sappho, since as far as I can see, in Sappho's poetics, no matter how people make facile formulations about her sexual orientation, which I think is so naive, the bottom line is that one of the most charismatic and erotically attractive personalities, maybe the most, in the poetics of Sappho is Achilles. So if Sappho likes Achilles, if I can put it crudely, why can't you like him? And I'm joking when I say like. I mean, after all, this isn't Consumer Reports where rate on a scale of 0 to 10 whether you like a product. This is a very all-powerful, well, I shouldn't say very, it's an all-powerful figure in ancient Greek song culture. Certainly, it's not only that they liked him, they thought he was the best there was. And that said, my first question, if I can just tell you all what was going through my head, was that Andromache is an Amazon name. It's a name that would be most appropriate to Amazons. And that's why I always thought that the Andromache of our Iliad is showing only some sides of her multi-dimensional personality. And we know that Achilles falls in love with Amazons. The exhibit A is Penthesilea. So I'm just trying to motivate what got into me in asking that question.
So Greg, could you maybe talk a little bit more about the meanings of the names, because a couple of participants have picked up on Penthesilea and the meaning of the name Achilles, and perhaps the meaning of the name Andromache. Maybe help us think about that.
And the name of Andromache means the one who fights men. And presumably it's another man or an Amazon. So that's one thing. Second thing is you have Amazon names, like one of my favorites is Antiope, who was the who was the queen of the Amazons, and who had the bad taste of falling in love with Theseus. I shouldn't have said it that way. Can I take it back? It's not that it's bad taste, but let's just say she did. And Antiope means having matching looks. Antiope, having matching looks. Another good one, Atalanta or Atalante, which means equal. Equal to what? Equal to men. Literally having the same weight as men, but in the sense of the same gravitas.
So There's been some quite creative approaches to envisaging how that sort of meeting and coming together might take place with Achilles and Andromache. Would it be a case of falling in love? Would it be a case of, you know, being a prize? Would it be a case of, one person has suggested, well, perhaps instead of Priam, she might go to retrieve Hector's body, and some kind of deal might be made, or and someone else has got, you know, would she then want revenge, or would she settle into a relationship? And so they're exploring all these kinds of scenarios.
I love it. And I would say, frankly, the first thing that pops into my head is falling in love. And I think of those vase paintings where you see Achilles at the point of plunging his weapon into the beautiful body of Penthesilea, and their eyes meet, and there's no really good one single representation of this in verbal art, but it's pretty clear that it's love at first sight, but love at first sight at the moment of death, at the moment where he kills her, and then he instantly sees, what have I done? I've killed my other self, my female self.
You've talked about a hero and a god having a sort of fatal attraction. Is this a similar sort of process?
I think it would be some kind of similar process in the sense that the recognition is instantaneous, and it is somehow correlated with the epic action. Yeah.
Achilles always seems to be getting his lookalikes or his doubles killed.
Yes.
In the Iliad. Patroclus, not so great. His ending. Hector is also a lookalike or a double of Achilles and Penthesilea.
There's recently been a book, I think of a very provocative and interesting book by Marco Fantuzzi, Fantuzzi, called Achilles in Love. And it explores all of these non-classical, usually, or meta-classical versions where he is this lover, and a very romantic lover in some cases. Well, how about this? There are situations where some unattainable girl just loses all her inhibitions and falls in love with him. That happens too in various myths that sort of slip through the cracks and make it to our age, but certainly they're not the canonical versions, but that does happen to him.
Yes, and if we think of Andromache in Rhapsody 6,
yes.
We see her, she actually knew the military secrets of Troy.
Yes.
So if we think of pre-Iliad, before the Iliad, then she's not married to Hector. And Achilles meets her.
Yes.
Why not?
Why
She's an Amazon.
Exactly.
She's, you know.
Exactly. And I love the fact that the one time an Amazon gets an epithet in the Iliad, I was just looking at my notes on this the other day. It's polyskarthmoio in the genitive, which means, how shall I say it? Moving forward by leaps and bounds. Amazons are these very agile, spirited females who, when they run across a plain, they don't just run, they run in leaps and bounds. They're so energetic. Fascinating. And then in 5th century sculpture, Athenian sculpture, when Phidias, the great master artist, represents Amazons fighting proto-Athenians, you can see Amazons taking these giant leaps, and then usually thwarted in their leaps by the the men there who are fighting them. Like there's that one scene where she is jumping and she's in the middle of an arc, and then some male hand yanks her back by her long streaming hair, which is flowing in the wind, and there's this jerking back motion, but it's so beautiful, and it was inspiring sculptors to make copies of that. I don't like the word copies, new representations of that 500, 600, 700 years later still.
Inspiring, right? One of the participants mentioned that Andromache cannot remain angry at Achilles because they both share, they know loss and pain, and eventually Andromache will go with Achilles.
Well, of course, she becomes, this is very sad, but she does become the prisoner of war for the son of Achilles. And Euripides' Andromache explores that in the tragedy by that name. And she's quite a lamenter in Euripides' Andromache. And I have an essay on that I know you all know. That I don't want to burden our participants with reading more things, but she does wind up with the son of Achilles for a while, but then of course that character dies, and then she gets to marry still another hero later on and become queen of a remote part of the Greek-speaking world. So she has quite a story, quite a set of stories attached to her.
So she is very much, as you were saying earlier, about being on a par, kind of very much a very prized sort of woman, a very powerful sort of woman in a way. One of the other participants has picked up on the lyre, because the lyre that Achilles is playing had belonged to her father. I wondered if you could maybe elaborate a little on that.
Yes, well, I'm of the generation where I like the song Killing Me Softly as sung by Roberta Flack, who's one of my favorite singers, not by the later group called the Fugees. I can never listen to that. But in Killing Me Softly, I think the trope in the modern song is that a woman starts falling in love with a man who is playing on a stringed instrument and singing to himself. And there's that line, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his song, killing me softly, etc., etc. So I confess I do think of the Clea Andron, which Achilles sings to himself, as being a whole variety of different possible things. Sure, it could be epic, and after all, Patroclus is waiting for his turn to sing by relay. So in one sense, it's epic, but in another sense, it could be all of his love stories. I think it's perfectly possible. And as we all know, in ancient Greek song culture, love songs modulate into lament, lament modulates into love songs, and there's no delineation, hard and fast delineation between the two. Because after all, most love songs have to do with bittersweet love and frustrated love, unfulfilled love, tragic love, etc. That's what gets people really excited, not a couple going off into the sunset and they lived happily ever after.
Yes, and this story of the Achilles playing the lyre is where we get more interesting traits of character for Achilles. That's where we get to like him more and discover that.
Yes, and after all, I made such an effort already in hours 3 and 4 to talk about, for example, Briseis, especially in 4, where this beautiful woman is crying for her husband, but also crying for Patroclus, because Patroclus is such a nice guy in the Iliad. I shouldn't have put it that way. That is so banal, the way I said nice guy, but he is definitely the kinder, gentler aspect of Achilles in our Iliad. And you remember how Briseis says, you kept telling me that Achilles is a nice person and that he'll marry you. And well, this is a tough one because again, I think if we don't know, and we don't, all the love stories having to do with Achilles, then that kinder, gentler personality doesn't affect us the way I think it would have in the case of an ancient audience.
So in thinking about our 4 question, one of the participants has brought in Patroclus. They're talking about how, yes, Achilles is this ultimate bridegroom, but everything about him is so magnified. Yeah. And then perhaps Patroclus has more nuances and perhaps imagining the two together. Yes. to really be the ultimate.
I think so. That's the way you can see the fuller picture. Yeah, I so agree. We're just very deprived in having only the Iliad or mostly only the Iliad as our only way of understanding Achilles. I wish we had more Sappho. I think we would be much more sensitive, but even with what little we have, we get the idea that in Sappho's songs, he's the beautiful flower who is cut down in its prime. He is the, as I like to say, the eternal bridegroom, the loving husband who never happened because he died too early. Every girl's dreamboat, so to speak. I'm saying it crudely again, but there's so many songs, folk songs, that we see by way of Sappho's song making attributed to Sappho. So many songs and even so many stories about young women who have a great deal of pride in their beauty and charm, and are really hard to get, and suitors just have broken hearts, but then almost unexplainably, well, to us, they fall madly in love with Achilles.
There's been quite a bit of discussion about whether his character is arrogant or not, and whether that's appealing, and that maybe he doesn't have to be as likable, because there are, somebody's given examples of other characters who perhaps do appear arrogant, but we're also very attracted to.
Yes, yes. Well, the thing is that he is so superior to everybody else. And I love to take the example of what Richard Martin, our friend, has published in that beautiful 1989 book, The Language of Heroes, which is, he not only outdoes everybody, he outspeaks, outsings everybody. He is so much more of a virtuoso in verbal art, that of all the characters in the Iliad and Odyssey, he is, may I put it in a fanciful way, closest to Homer. He is the Homer of the characters in the sense that he, just as quote unquote Homer is better than anybody else as in poetry, so also Achilles is better than anybody else in the poetry that is embedded in Homeric poetry, which is how he talks. When he talks, he sings.
And one of the participants mentioned his pride. Because of his pride, he doesn't go back from his word. And arrogance, pride, ego, we have all the ingredients of good leader.
Well, I think that the way we moderns use the word pride can mislead us, I think. it's more of a self-awareness of just how good you are, and he really is good. I mean, the poetry shows he's good, so of course he's going to be proud of that. He's not going to be modest, no. One last thing about Andromache, because I bet you're eager to go to that other question, which is that she also has the best hairdo of anybody anywhere in Homeric poetry. And so when her hair comes undone, it is so eroticized that it's like something out of Italian opera, where a woman's vulnerability becomes not just aestheticized, but eroticized. And we may disapprove if we think of her as a victim, but I think the song culture thinks of her primarily as a virtuoso lamenter. I hate to put it again this way, but it's the song and the needs of the song predominate over, oh, how can we make this a realistic, nice human? You know, these are superhumans. I don't think they're nice the way we are, because they're so self-aware of their power, because the song is aware of its power. Am I rationalizing? I hope not. I don't mean to apologize for these characters. They don't need apologies because they're so big.
I think that for some of the participants, touching back again on the Out4 question, that is something of a barrier, I think, for some of the participants to like Achilles. And I think they're genuinely trying to sort of see past that. What is it about him that got the ancient Greeks so worked up?
Yes. He is the eternal bridegroom, so he makes people cry. There was that rather syrupy song, I write the song that makes young girls cry. Well, this is not a written song. This is a percolating song that has been transmitted without writing for millennia, and where it's not just young girls cry over it, grown men cry over it.
And Achilles in the Iliad is not just the best at fighting or singing, but he's somebody who is worthy of being worshipped. I mean, the poem is being composed by people who worship Achilles, we can say, and so that kind of reverence or something is put into their depiction of Achilles. Of course, he's proud, or because he's a god, essentially. I mean,
well, he's
at times
he's superhuman. He's
superhuman. Yeah,
superhuman, and maybe I can't let go of this. I probably say it too early in the book version of Ancient Greek Hero in 24 Hours, but I love the fact that Pausanias, our 2nd century CE traveler, reports that the very first thing that happens at the Olympics is that on the eve of the Olympics, on the eve when it all starts, the women of the region, which is called Elis, gather and look towards the horizon in the west, and as they see the sun setting, they start lamenting for Achilles. That's the first thing that happens for the Olympics. What's more important than that for ancient Greek civilization? And Achilles somehow dominates even that. And I like the fact that the sorrow over Achilles is expressed by women, the local women. We're presumably not just weeping, but singing while they weep and weeping while they sing. So I just can't get enough of it. But I suppose we should go on to the next question.
Well, the next question is about Achilles, and one of the participants compares him to Hamlet to make it more close. Yes. Closer to us, to bring him.
Yes, I see it, because Hamlet too is, I've heard it said much better than I'm going to say it now, but he is so transcendent. He just breaks the frame. It's hard for him to be contained within the story. He's so powerful, such a powerful figure. Yeah, I think that's it's a very good comparison to think with. I'm kind of stunned into silence.
One of the participants said Achilles has no regrets.
Oh, well,
Question mark.
well, question mark. I love the way the French use the word regret, where it is lament. And I say, Achilles has lots of regrets. He didn't save his alter ego. And so he will be forever sad about it. Not just sad, he will be grief-stricken forever. And the grief will last even if he dies. That's how powerful it is. Oh, I'd say I don't mean to disagree in a negative way, but I would say, oh, yes, he has regrets. What is, Hélène, what is that? I think it was a composition in the era of Louis XIV, Le Tombeau des Regrets, or something like that, the tomb of regrets. And it's a viol, a 7-string instrument, and sometimes singing that goes with it that expresses regrets of a lost love, or regrets of missed opportunities, of failing to come through at some climactic moment. But even when I disagree, I love observations like that, because it shows that people react. That's what we want people to do. That's what we want our participants to do. So I hope that I don't inhibit your thinking if I sometimes disagree.
But I think they're thinking about, well, what do you like and what don't you like about him, which was the question. So another issue that I think maybe our participants are thinking about, and again trying to see past, is that he maybe what we would think of as a morality, particularly where he's refusing, he's letting his comrades die on, and he's not coming back to the fight. So that's something that's quite hard for us to, the modern sensibility to think about, that a refusal to come back and help.
Yes, yes. Why aren't you a good sport and just help your buddies? I think it again has to do with a self-awareness of how larger than life somebody is. After all, these things, this medium is not realistic in the sense that it's not portraying, Homeric poetry does not portray people like you and me, people in the present. Portrays people who lived in a heroic age, which means it's larger than life. People spoke in dactylic hexameters, just as the gods did. So it wasn't the way we speak. We speak prose, but or sub-prose. They spoke poetry, and when they had high emotions, they sang. Just as in, for example, that medieval French piece, Aucassin et Nicolette, where the higher you are in the story, the more elevated the register is, and the lovers, who are the two main characters, only sing to each other. They don't just talk to each other. And so the question is, are these people? Well, they're super people, and therefore, if the medium is very aware that it's a super medium, then the super people behave in ways that that just make us awestruck, and they're not there for us to look for realism. Oh, are they like us? No, they're not like us. They're better than us. They're better than we are. Sorry, my grandma.
Yeah, Greg, I just wanted to tell you that Le Tombeau des Regrets is a beautiful piece of music in the beautiful movie, Tous les matins du monde.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that piece is in the movie, and we can find it on YouTube. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, so the people out there can look for it. Thank you. Wow. So regrets are looking back and saying, If only.
One more thing in favor of Achilles, if I could say. I guess I like him more and more than I used to. He's not helping his buddies on the battlefield, as we mentioned, but they participated with Agamemnon in dishonoring Achilles at the beginning. They let Agamemnon redistribute the spoils, so to speak. Everyone had gotten their fair share, and they didn't stand up for Achilles when they had a chance to. So
and they did not stand up for him. That's absolutely true. And but the thing is, okay, he could have saved other heroes that he didn't save, but the mindset for people of the present who are listening to the Iliad is he saved us, and he and Patroclus saved us, because if they hadn't been there, we wouldn't be here, because we'd be extinct. If Hector's fire had reached the ships of the Achaeans, and the ships of the Achaeans had burned down the premises, that we wouldn't be here. I think of how my children, when they were very young, had such a high opinion of themselves that they figured that before they were born, before they were conceived, they were already in the air. They couldn't imagine a situation where they hadn't existed already. And I would say similarly with ancient Greek song culture, in a sense, can't imagine not having existed. But thank you, Achilles. Thank you, Patroclus.
Which kind of loops us back to the importance of the catalogue of ships,
Yes.
which I know in another thread people have been thinking about, and someone was saying how it was a place he'd visited, and when it got to that place, he went, yes. and so when we think about the ships being under threat and that they wouldn't have come home to,
Yes.
you know, continue existing, it ties in again with that importance, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. So it's also so larger than life. And going back to something that Keith brought up, I think at a very good point in our conversation. After all, Achilles is not just the major hero in Greek epic, in ancient Greek epic, but he's also the major cult hero. And that's why at the Olympics, women lament him. So he's huge. I also like the fact that when he's dead, what is it? I always lose the number, but we learn it from Lycophron that as a corpse, of course, he's a beautiful corpse, un beau mort, he is, I think, 9.5 cubits long. He is, in death, he's even larger than life. I don't know where to put the stress. He's even larger than life. Well, so what do you people think out there, you participants? Even if you don't like him more, I hope you're more awestruck by him, and you're awestruck by him because you're awestruck by the medium that conveys him, which is the song culture, which is this amazing song culture that didn't happen overnight. It took, all right, I'll be conservative, 1,500 years. If I were not conservative, I would add another 500 to develop where it is the way we see it. And I say is, where it was by the 5th century BCE. Okay, then it turns into a text and it has some rough times surviving from then to now. But I'm saying for a good couple of millennia, this was the dominant way to think about everything.
I like him. I've always liked him. You know, but I like him, and I like that little sentence he sings in Rhapsody 9. He likes life.
Yeah, he loves life.
Yes, he loves life. We must never forget that he loved life. So
no, it's not like, oh, I can hardly wait to die. No. He embraces life. He loves life. That's so true. So it's not goodbye, cruel world. he's the flower.
Mhm.
A mutant flower, but a flower.
Well, I hate to say it, but I think we should probably wrap it up for this time.
Well, it's hard to leave Achilles, but you know what? We won't. He'll keep coming back.
Until the very end.
Until the very end, yeah.
All right.
And thank you all. Thank you all for encouraging the participants so beautifully. I hope that you participants out there realize how much we depend on your engagement, and you're certainly showing it, and we appreciate it.
Yes, very much so. All right. See you next time for hours. What are we up to? 5 and 6. So,
Yes.
all right. Take care.
Bye.